The two-lane highway climbed into the Sierra foothills like a ribbon thrown over dark pines. A beige '89 Toyota Previa hummed around switchbacks, its roof rack rattling with duffels and a tripod. Serena said, grinning, "Okay, if this place has an actual ballroom, I'm shooting a dance scene in it. No excuses," Marco said, tapping the camcorder on his knee. "Long as I get the wide shots from the balcony. Also, these breaks feel like a suggestion," Jamie said, flipping through a folded 8AA map. "We're fine. According to the brochure, the Summit Crest Hotel sits, and I quote, at the crown of an era, which is code for, everything smells like lemon polish and tragedy," Trevor said from the way back. "Do they have room service? I haven't eaten since Barstow." Danny said, amused, "You had Funyuns." Trevor replied, "Funyuns are not food. They're a cry for help." Noah, riding shotgun, pressed his forehead to the glass as the trees parted. Granite spilled into view, and beyond it a dark, still lake, winter cold even in late October. Noah said softly, "There she is. Built in 1927. Prohibition parties. A governor hid out here once. Place almost burned down in '58. They rebuilt the west wing but never reopened the tower." Serena said, "How do you know that?" Noah replied, "I read the brochure Jamie left on my seat, and also, I'm a history major. It's a disease." They crested the last hill. The Summit Crest Hotel appeared. Terraced balconies, a colonnaded porch, a roofline of copper that had aged into bruised green. The marquee above the porte cochere still glowed even in daylight, half the bulbs dead, so it read, Summit CRC. Jamie said, "That is perfect." The Previa rolled under the arch. Bell chimes tinkled from somewhere old and unseen. Inside, cold air carried lemon polish and faint cigarette memory. A sunken lobby spread beneath a chandelier the size of a small car. Velvet sofas. A grand fireplace with stacked birch that looked too white to burn. To the left, a switchboard that might have connected to 100 rooms once. To the right, a brass elevator with a needle that swept a half moon of numbers 1 to 12. No 13. Front desk clerk said, smiling professionally, "Good afternoon and welcome to the Summit Crest. I'm Lila." Jamie said, offering a hand. "Jamie Park, reservation for 6, student rate with media waiver." Lila's fingers were cool. She slid a leather ledger forward, its pages ruled and numbered. Lila said, "We did receive your fax. 3 double rooms adjoining West Wing, 2 nights." Marco said, panning his camcorder. "Mind if I grab a few lobby shots?" Lila replied, "As long as guests' faces aren't the primary subject." Danny said, eyes tracking the balcony. "Is that a mezzanine?" Lila replied, "The music gallery. Once hosted big bands, Henderson, Ellington. We keep the piano tuned for special events." From a door behind the desk, Mr. Harlan appeared, night manager in the afternoon, gray hair precise, tie pin a ruby dot. Mr. Harlan said, "Student filmmakers, yes? Please treat the property kindly. The hotel responds to respect." Trevor said under his breath, "Weird way to talk about a building." Noah said quietly, "Or not weird enough?" Lila slid over brass keys on fobs the shape of teardrops. The numbers were engraved by hand, W32, W314, W316. Jamie said, "West Wing, 3rd floor." Lila replied, "Elevators are original. She likes to be courted. If she pauses, give her a moment." Serena said, "She?" Lila smiled. "Everything old here has a personality." A bellhop barely older than them appeared, name tag Ricky pinned crooked. Ricky said, "I can take bags if you want." Marco said, "We travel light, except this tripod which doubles as a blunt instrument." Ricky grinned. "Give me 5 minutes and I'll show you a view people pay extra for." Mr. Harlan said without looking at him, "Ricky." Ricky replied, "I'll be good." They crowded into the cage. Brass lattice clacked shut. The needle trembled upward. Somewhere above, cables sang. Danny said, "There's no 13. Noah said. Lots of old hotels skip it. Superstition. Serena said. What happens if you want to go to 13? The elevator answered with a shiver. The lights dimmed. The cage jerked. For a heartbeat, the needle ticked past 12, an impossible sliver, and then snapped back to 3. The doors slid open onto a corridor of runner rugs and gilt wall sconces. Trevor said, laughing it off. See? She flirts. Jamie said to camera. Logging. Elevator blip. Time. 3:12 p.m. Marco, get that needle jump in case it's a thing. Marco said, already rolling. Their rooms smelled of cedar and starch. Windows looked west toward the lake, a mirror blown dark. In W312, Jamie and Serena bounced on twin beds while Danny opened the wardrobe to find vintage hangers lined like soldiers. Serena said, if there isn't at least one haunted portrait, I'm asking for a refund. Danny said, touching the wallpaper seam. This pattern repeats every 23 inches, except here. See the offset? Like the wall behind it isn't flat. Jamie said, recording, irregular seam. Danny thinks architecture is lying to us. Across the hall in W314, Trevor unplugged a lamp and replugged it until the shade stopped tilting. Trevor said, do you hear that? Noah said, what? Trevor replied, a hum, like wires in the wall. Noah listened. Old buildings do that. Trevor said, no, like human, like someone singing through their teeth. The hum faded. It was probably the ice machine. There was no ice machine on the 3rd floor. In W316, Marco dropped his tripod and pressed his eye to the window. Marco said, check this view. Lake on the left, tower on the right. That tower wing really is sealed. He zoomed in. The tower's windows were bolted with crossed bars from the inside. A faded 13 hung at the level just below the roofline, a gilt numeral trapped behind glass like a preserved insect. Marco said softly, huh. Ricky made good on his promise. He led them down 2 flights and up a hidden staircase a maid left propped with a bucket. Ricky said, management keeps this closed except for weddings, but if you're quiet. He pushed open double doors. The ballroom inhaled light. Parquet floor, a stage with a velvet shell, balconies tucked into shadow. Paint peeled in the corners like paper sunburn. Serena said, hushed. I was kidding about the dance scene. I'm not kidding anymore. Noah wandered to a wall of photographs, black and white couples blurred by motion, bandstands, trays of coupe glasses. In the bottom corner of one print, a date 1933, and an inked note, staff only, keep back. Noah said, look at this. A hallway in the photo ran along the back of the stage, a service corridor lit by bare bulbs. The print had been marked with a grease pencil X over a door that did not exist on the wall in front of them. Jamie said, hidden door? Ricky said, old hotels always have them, for staff to move without being seen. Danny pressed the paneling with her palm. A hollow knock answered. She smiled despite herself. Danny said, there. Mr. Harlan's voice came from the doorway as if he'd been there all along. Please do not pry at the walls. They turned. Harlan's smile did not reach his eyes. Mr. Harlan said, the paneling is original, very fragile. Our insurance prefers it remain intact. Serena said, we were just looking. Mr. Harlan replied, looking has a way of turning into touching. He gestured. Ricky deflated, leading them back out. On the mezzanine, a black Steinway waited under a dusty tarp, keys peeking like teeth. Marco said, Serena, play us something from your tortured artist years. Serena laughed. I suffered through clarinet. If I touch that piano, a ghost will file a noise complaint. Noah said, to no one. They used to stop the music at exactly 11. There's a note about it in the brochure. Noise ordinance across the lake. Jamie said, record that. Specifics are how you sell a story. From the lobby below, the brass elevator clanked open, then closed, then open again. No one came out. No one went in. Danny said, "Do you guys feel that tilt? Like the floor isn't level?" Trevor bounced once. "I feel hungry." Jamie grinned. "Dinner, then interview subjects. I want housekeeping, front desk, anyone who's worked through a night shift." The dining room was a half-occupied postcard, white tablecloths, a wall mirror that doubled the room into infinity, and a waiter who looked like he'd been carved from a taller waiter and sanded down. Waiter said, "Prime rib special tonight, soup is barley." Trevor said, "Prime rib, yes. Soup, yes. Bread, yes. Anything else you can legally call food, yes." Danny said to Jamie low, "Look at the mirror. Do you see the chandelier?" Jamie said, "Yeah." Danny replied, "Count the bulbs. In the reflection, there are 12 lit. In the room, 11. Jamie stared. A single socket above their table was dark IRL, but in the mirror it glowed a weak, stubborn gold. Jamie said, forcing a smile, "We're jet-lagged from the time zone of common sense. Eat." Marco clicked record discreetly. He panned the dining room, catching staff faces, table numbers, exit signs. In the mirror, the camera caught a woman passing behind them, hair in a 1920s bob, a tray of coupe glasses steady as planets. Marco turned. No waitress, no tray. The mirror offered the only proof that she'd ever been. He pressed pause, thumb trembling. After dinner, Jamie cornered Lila at the desk while Mr. Harlan pretended to audit a ledger. Jamie said, "We're doing a short doc student project, local history. Do you mind a few questions on camera tomorrow?" Lila said, "I prefer not to be on camera, but I can answer questions." Jamie said, "Then off the record, is the tower really closed?" Lila replied, "It's sealed." Jamie said, "Why?" Lila looked past Jamie at nothing for a moment, then back. "Because some doors close, and when a door decides it's closed, it's not our job to reopen it." Jamie said, half joking, "Great quote, completely useless." Harlan's pen scratched the ledger like a blade on bone. Mr. Harlan said, "You'll find the library open until 10. There are clippings from the hotel's early days." Noah said, appearing as if summoned by the word clippings, "Library?" Mr. Harlan replied, "Downstairs past the billiards room, mind the step." The library smelled like paper and whiskey, even without whiskey. Oak shelves pressed close, old magazines huddled in neat soldiers. A microfiche machine sat under a sheet like a sleeping beast. Noah said, already riffling, "Local paper, the Ridge Chronicle, 1927 through 1961. Look at this. Governor's private retreat opens to select guests." Serena flipped a scrapbook. A dance card slipped free with names penciled in soft graphite. Evelyn Henry L. The date stamped Oct. 29, 1933. Serena said, "Halloween weekend, cute." Danny said, trailing fingers along binding cloth, "Some of these books were rebound recently." Trevor said from the doorway, "Guys, we have an audience." They turned. A woman in a housekeeping uniform stood with a laundry cart, hair threaded with gray badge Alvarez. Mrs. Alvarez said, "You're the students." Jamie said, "Yes, I'm Jamie. This is..." Mrs. Alvarez cut gently. "I know. Please don't move furniture. This building keeps count." Jamie, switching gears. "You've worked here long?" Mrs. Alvarez said, 23 years. Jamie said, "Have you ever seen anything unusual?" Mrs. Alvarez watched her for a long beat, then nodded once toward a wall of photographs. Mrs. Alvarez said, "The hotel keeps pictures of everyone who stays. Not all the faces show up." Marco asked, "What does that mean?" Mrs. Alvarez said, calm as a prayer, "Sometimes a person comes here already missing. The camera can tell." She pushed the cart on. The wheel sang a tired note across marble. Trevor whispered, "Is it too late to go to a Motel 6? They regrouped in W312 with a six-pack Trevor found at the gift shop and the kind of giddy fear that makes people louder than they should be. Marco connected his high-8 camcorder to the tiny TV. The dining room footage rolled. Clinking silver, warped audio, a newspaper headline in the mirror reversed. Marco stopped the tape, rewound, frame stepped. There, between frames, the waitress with the bob, tray balanced, face grain soft, moving through the reflection only. Serena said, "I don't like that." Danny said, "Clinical. Could be a ghosting effect. CRT monitors reflect weird. Or the mirror's angle picked someone we didn't notice." Marco said, "Then where's the tray sound? We would have heard it." Jamie said, deciding, "Okay, plan. Tomorrow we stick to daylight. We interview staff. We shoot B-roll. No one goes anywhere alone, especially not tower adjacent. No seances, no dares, no stairwells after 10. Trevor raised his can. "To extremely reasonable rules." Noah said softer. "To Laura and David." They looked at him. Jamie blinked. Jamie said, "Who?" Noah said, "Sorry. Wrong story. A ranger told me a Yosemite case last year. It stuck." Silence crept between them, an uninvited seventh guest. Serena said, breaking it gently, "To us then. To getting what we came for. To telling a story." They clinked cans. Outside, the lake held the moon without rippling. Near 10, Jamie stepped into the hallway to call her mom on the payphone by the elevator. She fed quarters. The line rang and rang. She hung up, pressed her forehead to the cool brass of the elevator lattice, and listened to the motor tick in its sleep. Down the corridor, a light flickered behind the frosted glass of a door marked "Service." She watched it for 20 seconds. It blinked, steady, 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 like a distant heartbeat. Jamie said to herself, a rule-maker breaking her rules. Just a peek. She touched the service knob. It didn't turn, but the frosted glass changed. The shadow of a person slid across, tall, then gone. Behind her, the elevator dinged, although no one had called it. The needle climbed past 1, 2, 3, then quivered, then, just for a breath, ticked sideways into a space where no numeral sat at all. The doors opened onto an empty cage. The air inside smelled faintly of lemon and cold. Jamie backed away, heartbeat making a sound she would later describe on tape as, "like I swallowed a hummingbird." She went to the rooms. She locked the door. They killed the lamps. The room trapezoids went soft. The wallpaper seam stood like a raised vein in the dim. From somewhere in the building, deep, mechanical, annoyed, the elevator thunked once. Pipes sighed. Footsteps tapped down the hall. Danny said in the dark, "Do you hear counting?" Serena said, "Counting." Danny whispered, 3, 5, 7. "It's skipping." Jamie reached for the bedside recorder she kept for notes, thumb finding the red button without looking. Jamie said, low, into the mic, "Summit Crest Hotel, 10:41 p.m. Elevator anomaly, mirror discrepancy, service corridor light, staff evasive but generous. Building is alive. Tomorrow we..." A soft knock came from inside the wardrobe, not the door. Inside. They froze. No one spoke for a full 10 seconds. Serena said finally, pretending calm, "Old wood settles." Danny said, "Wood doesn't knock back." No one slept well. It was the kind of night that collects at the base of your skull and waits. In October of 1993, 6 students checked into the Summit Crest Hotel with cameras, questions, and the easy courage of people who think stories bend to them. The hotel accepted them the way old places do, politely, with conditions it did not say aloud. By morning, they would have footage. By the next, they would have headlines. And after that, they would have nothing at all. The morning light spilled through tall windows, striping the parquet floors with bars of gold. The 6 students sat at a table set with chipped china and 2 bright silverware. Trevor said, yawning, "I don't care what anyone says. Beds were fine. It's the knocking closets I can live without." Serena said, sipping coffee, "Don't joke. That wasn't pipes. Pipes don't have rhythm, Danny said, rubbing her eyes. I heard numbers, counting. It skipped. 3, 5, 7. My brain doesn't invent math at night. Marco said, holding up the camcorder. I got audio. It's faint, but it's there. Want me to play it? Jamie said quickly. Not at breakfast. Lila passed by, balancing a tray of toast and scrambled eggs. She set them down with a quiet smile. Lila said, We like to keep mornings bright. If you need anything, ring the bell at the desk. Jamie asked. Ms. Alvarez said the hotel keeps pictures of every guest. Is that true? Lila hesitated, then nodded. Lila said softly, You'll find albums in the library. Just remember, some stories are better when they stay stories. She moved on. Noah tugged a dust cloth from the microfiche reader and fired it up. The machine hummed like a throat clearing. Noah said, excited. Local Chronicle, 1933, Halloween Gala. Listen. Several guests reported unusual power outages. Staff insisted festivities continue. A woman was last seen near the West Wing stairwell. Jamie said, writing fast. That's it. That's the tower wing. It connects to West. Marco said from the stacks. Hey, album. He flipped pages of black and white guest portraits. Some were blurred, some crisp. He froze at one. A couple hand in hand, faces neat as if for yearbook. Behind them, a shadow in the wallpaper, taller than either, head bent, no face. Marco said, voice low. This shot shouldn't have shadows. Look, lighting's frontal. Where's this thing coming from? Danny said, clinical. Could be a processing error. Serena whispered, could be not. They found Mrs. Alvarez folding linen near the service stairwell. Jamie asked politely, You've been here 23 years, right? Did anything happen in 1993 before? Mrs. Alvarez said without looking up. Things always happen. The hotel keeps time differently. Sometimes guests leave. Sometimes the hotel keeps them. Trevor laughed nervously. Like, kidnaps them? Mrs. Alvarez folded another sheet. Mrs. Alvarez said, No, more like, remembers them. Her cart squeaked away. Following a floor plan Marco copied from an old brochure, they reached the back of the ballroom stage where a door should have been. Danny said, pressing the wall. Here, hollow. She shoved. The panel shifted half an inch, then stuck. Trevor said, smirking. Push harder. Jamie snapped. Don't. Harlan warned us. Right on cue, Mr. Harlan appeared at the end of the corridor. His shoes clicked sharp. Mr. Harlan said, Do not tamper with structural walls. Liability is not a game. Jamie said quickly, We're sorry, just exploring. Mr. Harlan stepped closer, voice calm but edged. Exploring has consequences. The hotel notices everything. He turned, walking away. The panel seemed to breathe once before settling flush again. The group wandered the lake trail, filming B-roll. Pines towered. Water reflected too dark for the clear day. Marco said, filming. Okay. Wide shot of the tower from across the lake. Perfect establishing. The camera zoomed in. In one barred window of the sealed tower, a curtain fluttered. Marco said sharply, Danny, did you see that? She squinted. Nothing moved now. Danny said, Wind. Marco said, Windows are bolted. No draft. He kept filming. Later, Serena went alone to grab batteries from the car. On the way back, she took the wrong stairwell and ended in a staff-only hallway. Bare bulbs buzzed. At the far end, Ricky the bellhop leaned against his cart, chewing gum. Ricky said, Lost? Serena said, Shortcut, I guess. Ricky said quietly, Don't use this hallway at night. Doors here don't like to stay closed. She frowned. Serena asked, You mean, like drafts? Ricky said, Like memory. This place, it remembers steps, even when no one's walking. He shoved his cart, wheels squealing, and vanished around the bend. The students regrouped. Jamie scribbled notes while Marco replayed footage, On screen, the lake tower. Frame by frame, that fluttering curtain. In one still, for a breath, the outline of a hand pressed against glass. Trevor said, backing up, "That's fake. You added that?" Marco snapped, "It's raw tape." Danny said, "It could be pareidolia, random patterns we read as human." Serena whispered, "Looks like someone waving." The brass elevator dinged. Empty cage. Needle flicked up. Paused at 12. Then trembled again in that space past the numbers. All 6 froze. Breath held. By their second day, the Summit Crest revealed more than cracked plaster and velvet dust. Portraits showed faces that weren't there. Windows sealed for decades stirred with movement. Staff whispered of a hotel that remembered. And as daylight faded, the students began to understand. They weren't just filming history. They were part of it. The brass elevator dinged at 12 on sharp. Empty. The needle slid past 12, paused in that impossible space again. Jamie whispered, "It's doing it again." Marco whispered back, camcorder rolling, "This time I've got proof." The cage shuddered. The frosted glass on the service door down the hall flickered with a moving shadow. Danny said quietly, "That's not reflection. Someone's behind there." They approached, breath shallow. A voice, faint, layered, came through the door. Counting. 3, 5, 7. Serena gasped, hand over her mouth. Trevor whispered, "That's exactly what Danny heard last night." Suddenly, the knob rattled. Hard, then still. Deciding to split for coverage, against Jamie's rules, Marco and Serena headed to the ballroom. The parquet glowed under moonlight spilling through tall windows. Marco filmed. Marco said, "This is it. If anything happens..." The piano struck a single note. No one touched it. Serena backed away. Serena said, "Marco, don't." He zoomed in. The keys pressed again. This time a slow progression. Low CEG. Marco muttered, "It's forming a chord." In the reflection of the ballroom's wall-length mirrors, couples danced in grain-soft black and white, blurred like an old reel. But in the room itself, empty floor. Serena screamed. Marco spun his camera. Nothing but parquet and silence. Jamie and Danny found Ricky the bellhop smoking by the service stairwell, pale under fluorescent buzz. Jamie asked, "You've seen things, haven't you? Just tell us." Ricky exhaled smoke, hands shaking. "Sometimes at midnight the hotel tries to balance the books. People check in. Not all of them check out." Danny pressed. "What do you mean?" Ricky whispered, "It chooses." A door slammed further down the hall. Ricky flinched, stubbed his cigarette, and ran without another word. Trevor and Noah, restless, wandered outside toward the lake. Mist curled low, swallowing their boots. Noah pointed. Noah said, "Look." In the sealed tower window, light glowed pale blue. 2 silhouettes stood, hand in hand. Trevor whispered, "Marco and Serena snuck in?" Noah said flatly, "That wing's been sealed for 30 years. The light winked out. By 3, all 6 regrouped in Jamie's room, shaken. They played back Marco's ballroom footage frame by frame. In one still, behind the dancing specters, stood a figure in a bellhop's uniform. Too tall to be Ricky, face blank. Jamie said, "Okay, everyone stays together. Sunrise, we pack and go. No second night." Serena whispered, "What if it doesn't let us?" The wardrobe knocked. Once. Twice. Then silence. Sunlight crawled across the west wing. Housekeeping carts rattled down halls. Lila delivered folded towels, humming as if nothing had happened. But when staff opened rooms W312, 314, and 316, the beds were neatly made. Suitcases stacked, cameras coiled. Empty. No trace of the 6 students. At the front desk, Mr. Harlan closed the leather ledger, pen sliding across the page. Ledger read, "Checkout complete. 6 guests. Settled." He placed the pen neatly beside it, eyes lifting toward the brass elevator as it dinged softly with no one inside. Mr. Harlan said almost fondly, "The hotel responds to respect." On October 30th, 1993, 6 students vanished from the Summit Crest Hotel. Their belongings remained. Their rooms were undisturbed. Their footage, recovered later, told only fragments: mirrors that lied, windows that glowed, music for dancers long gone. Official records listed them as missing. The hotel listed them as checked out. Televisions across California flickered with the same words: 6 students missing at historic Sierra Hotel. News anchor said, on TV. Authorities have confirmed that 6 university students failed to check out of the Summit Crest Hotel over the weekend. Their belongings were found in their rooms untouched. But the students themselves are gone. The footage cut to search dogs circling the property, deputies knocking on bolted tower doors, and Mr. Harlan standing at the entrance, face carved from stone. The parents arrived within days. Their cars lined the gravel drive. Reporters swarmed, flashbulbs popping. Mrs. Park, Jamie's mother, said furious, "Where is my daughter? Her clothes are here. Her camera is here. Don't you dare tell me she just walked off." Mr. Bennett, Serena's father, shouted at deputies, "This place swallowed them. Tear down the walls if you have to." Sheriff Daniels said calmly, "We have no evidence of foul play at this time. Please, let us handle this properly." Mrs. Park screamed, "Properly? She's gone." At a roadside diner, reporters cornered a tourist couple who had stayed at the hotel the same weekend. Witness number 1 said, "We heard music, swing music like from the 30s. It came from the ballroom, but when we peeked in, it was empty." Witness number 2 shook his head. "I didn't hear anything, just bad plumbing." Reporter asked, "Did you see the students?" Witness number 1 said, "We saw them filming. They looked excited. And then, the next morning, their hallway was quiet. Too quiet." The county sheriff faced a sea of microphones outside the courthouse. Sheriff Daniels said, "At this time, we are treating the case as a missing persons investigation. Search and rescue operations are underway. We have no reason to believe the students are in immediate danger." A reporter shouted. Reporter asked, "What about the hotel's tower? Why is it sealed? Rumors say guests went missing there before." Sheriff Daniels replied firmly, "Those rumors are unfounded. The tower is structurally unsound, nothing more." Behind him, Mr. Harlan stood expressionless, hands folded. Headlines spread nationwide: Hotel of Secrets, students vanish in Sierra Resort, rooms neat, guests gone, parents demand answers in Crest mystery. Talk shows invited paranormal investigators. Some blamed cults, others blamed the staff. Radio host said, on air, "You don't just disappear from a hotel room unless someone, or something, wants you gone." One local reporter convinced Mrs. Alvarez to speak off the record. Reporter asked, "Do you think the hotel is responsible?" Mrs. Alvarez said softly, "The hotel is alive in its own way. It doesn't take people, but it doesn't stop them from leaving either." Reporter asked, "What does that mean?" Mrs. Alvarez replied, "It means sometimes a place keeps secrets better than people do." By November 1993, the Summit Crest Hotel was no longer a quiet mountain relic. It was a national headline. 6 students gone, families begging, witnesses clashing, officials denying. Some saw a crime, others saw a haunting. But one truth settled in the valley. The hotel had taken something, and it had no intention of giving it back. Every Christmas, Jamie's parents set a place for her at the table. Mrs. Park said, voice breaking, "I still make her favorite, kimchi stew. If she comes back, I want it warm." Mr. Park replied quietly, "She's not walking through that door. We've been living with a ghost." The silence after dinner was heavier than any snowfall outside. By 1996, the hotel reopened its ballroom for weddings. Guests whispered about the vanished students. Guest number 1 said, tipsy, "They say you can still hear cameras rolling in the halls at night." Guest number 2 laughed nervously. Yeah, and sometimes when you look in the mirrors, you see more people than are actually there. A staff member overheard, face stiff. Staff whispered, "Don't joke about it." The hotel listens. Former Ranger Eliza visited the hotel bar in 1997. She confided to the bartender. Eliza said, "That case still haunts me. Room's neat, kids gone. That doesn't happen in the wild. It happens when a place chooses." Bartender asked, "Chooses what?" Eliza replied, "Who stays, who doesn't?" Travelers began reporting strange experiences online. Primitive forums use netboards. User Sierra Hiker 97 wrote, "Stayed at Summit Crest. Room was freezing, even with heater on. Around midnight, wardrobe knocked. 3 times, no one inside." User Ghost Girl responded, "I stayed too. My camcorder picked up voices saying numbers. 3, 5, 7. It's real." In 1998, families held a candlelight vigil outside the hotel. Mr. Bennett shouted, "This place isn't safe. Tear it down before it takes anyone else." Local deputies stood guard. Tourists filmed with VHS camcorders, selling tapes later at flea markets. The hotel's neon sign buzzed behind the protesters like a heartbeat. By 2000, the county announced the case inactive. Sheriff Daniels said to press, "We've exhausted all leads. Unless new evidence surfaces, this file will remain closed." Mrs. Park yelled from the back, "Closed doesn't mean solved." Her voice cracked, echoing against courthouse walls, but no one listened anymore. From 1994 to 2000, the Summit Crest Hotel lived 2 lives. By day, it was weddings, conferences, polished brochures. By night, it was whispers, knocks, shadows in mirrors. The families never stopped begging. The staff never stopped denying. And slowly, officially, the world moved on. The hotel did not. A shaky camcorder tape appeared on early YouTube. 2 backpackers dared each other to film inside the Summit Crest ballroom. Backpacker Nutter 1 whispered on tape, "Dude, it's freezing in here." The footage panned across empty parquet, then caught in the mirror 6 blurred figures walking across the floor, cameras in hand. Backpacker number 2 gasped, No, turn it off." The video was titled, "The Missing Students Still Roam Here?" It hit 500,000 views in weeks. On Reddit like boards, debates raged. User Mirror Watcher wrote, "My aunt worked at the hotel. She said a closet knocks at night, always 3 times. User Skeptical Dad replied, "It's pipes, old wood. Stop scaring kids." User Lantern Ghost posted, "No, it's real. I stayed in W314. I saw a handprint appear on the window from the inside. My roommate saw it too. We left at 3 a.m. A popular true crime podcast released a 2-part series, The Summit Crest Six. Host said on air, 6 students vanished in 1993. Their belongings remained. Their footage suggested something more than crime. Was it a cover-up? Or did the hotel itself choose? Clips of parents sobbing, rangers speculating, and the viral ballroom video played under tense piano. Host added, "And remember, the elevator skipped numbers, including 13. What does that mean?" A documentary crew interviewed Ricky, the bellhop now in his 40s. His hands trembled holding a cigarette. Ricky said, "That night, I warned them, don't use the service halls. Doors don't like to stay shut, but they didn't listen. Next morning, gone." Interviewer asked, "You think the hotel did it?" Ricky muttered, "I think the hotel wanted them." In Quantico, a young analyst cross-checked cold cases. His monitor showed keywords: unexplained vanishings, hotels, intact belongings. Analyst said to supervisor, "Summit Crest matches 3 other cases, same anomalies. Rooms untouched, people gone. Should we escalate?" Supervisor replied, "The Bureau doesn't chase ghosts, but keep the file open." A couple from Oregon reported to local deputies that their daughter recorded a knock from inside the wardrobe of W316. Tourist father said, "We thought she was pranking us." Then the knock came again. From inside, nobody there. The deputy filed it under disturbance, No action. By the 2010s, the Summit Crest Six were no longer just a headline. They were an internet legend. Videos, podcasts, whispers in forums. To some, entertainment. To others, unfinished grief. The families still waited. The staff still denied. But in FBI archives, the case file gathered dust, until the mountain gave up new secrets. Jackhammers tore into the West Wing. Dust bled into the morning air. A worker's crowbar pried at warped paneling, revealing a hollow cavity behind. Worker No. 1 said, Boss, you better look at this." Inside, a stack of old film reels, rusted but intact, and a brass room key labeled W314. Foreman muttered, "Jesus, bag it. Call it in." The county sheriff was notified. Hours later, black SUVs rolled up the mountain road. The FBI had returned. 2 agents stepped into the gutted corridor, Special Agent Claire Monroe and Special Agent Lucas Park. Their suits stood out against sawdust and debris. Agent Monroe said, 27 years later and the building's still coughing up secrets. Agent Park replied, "Or bait." They examined the reels. Each was labeled in neat handwriting. Ballroom, 10/29/93. Lobby, 10/30/93. Agent Park said, "Students' footage, the missing pieces." In a temporary FBI command post, a projector whirred. Grainy images filled the wall. On screen, Serena dancing alone in the ballroom, laughing, Marco filming. The piano struck a note by itself. Serena froze, staring at the keys. The film cut. Next reel. Jamie interviewing Mrs. Alvarez in the library. Mrs. Alvarez leaned close and whispered something, but the audio failed. Agent Monroe said, frustrated, "Damn it, no sound." But Monroe lip-read, slow and careful. Agent Monroe whispered. She said, "The hotel keeps count." Among the debris, a moldy leather journal surfaced, pages stuck together. Forensics pried them apart. One legible entry read, "We saw them in the mirrors again. Not us, but us. Smiling when we weren't. If we go near the tower, we won't come back." Agent Park muttered, "They knew." News vans swarmed the hotel gates again. Reporters shoved microphones. Reporter shouted, "FBI confirms new evidence in the Summit Crest Six case. Do you believe the students are alive?" Agent Monroe answered carefully, "We're examining all recovered materials. No further comment." Behind her, Mrs. Park, the mother who never stopped waiting, held Jamie's photo against her chest, eyes wet with decades of grief. Mrs. Park said to cameras, "Find her, please, just find her." At night, the FBI tested the old brass elevator. Power restored, cables groaned. Technician said, "Needle only goes up to 12. No The needle quivered, then slid past 12 into empty space. The cage rattled. Inside, audio recorders picked up a faint voice. 3, 5, 7. Every agent froze. Agent Monroe whispered, "That's the same sequence reported in 93. The lights cut. The cage sat in pitch dark for 12 seconds. When they flicked back, evidence bags had shifted on the floor, as if touched. In 2020, renovations peeled away walls that had kept secrets for nearly 3 decades. Film reels, a journal, voices that should have been silent. For the FBI, the case was no longer history. It was alive. The Summit Crest Hotel had not forgotten. It had only been waiting. In a quiet conference room, Mrs. Alvarez sat across from Agent Monroe. Her hands twisted a rosary. Agent Monroe asked, "You told the students in 93 that the hotel keeps count. What did you mean?" Mrs. Alvarez said softly, "Every night I counted linens, towels, dishes, but the numbers never matched. Always more than we had. 6 extra sometimes. Then they were gone." Agent Monroe pressed, "Gone where?" Mrs. Alvarez whispered, "Into the hotel. It remembers everyone who walks its halls, even you." Her eyes fixed on the mirrored glass of the interview room. For a second, 6 blurred figures stood behind the agent's reflections, then vanished. Technicians digitized the old reels. Filters sharpened the ballroom sequence. On screen, Marco panned across the empty floor. In the mirror, dancers. But when zoomed, one dancer stared directly into the camera lens, eyes black voids. Agent Park muttered, "That's looking at us." Technician said, "Sir, the camera was pointed away. That reflection shouldn't exist." The screen flickered. For one frame, words scrawled across the film, "Stay counted." The tourist from 1993, now older and trembling, agreed to talk again. Witness said, "I told the sheriff back then. I saw the students in the ballroom, and then I saw them again in the mirror when they weren't there. The sheriff told me to shut up." Agent Monroe asked, "Why speak now?" Witness replied, "Because last week I drove past the hotel, and I saw them. Same clothes, same cameras, walking up the steps, like time never moved." The FBI set up thermal cameras and motion sensors in the West Wing. Midnight came, monitors spiked, cold zones dropped to 30 degrees in seconds. Technician said, alarmed, temperature freefall, all sensors redlining. On screen, heat signatures appeared. 6 human-sized forms moving down the corridor. Agent Park shouted, "Units, Corridor 3, move in." Agents stormed the hallway, empty, dust undisturbed. Yet monitors still tracked movement, overlapping with the agent's own outlines. At 12:17, the wardrobe in W316 knocked. Once, twice, 3 times. The agents aimed flashlights. Agent Monroe said firmly, "Open it." An officer yanked the doors wide. Empty shelves. But the knock came again, this time from the inside of the wall behind it. The plaster bulged as if something pressed outward. Agent Park whispered, "Jesus Christ." Outside, drones captured footage of the sealed tower. A glow spread behind barred windows. For a moment, 6 silhouettes appeared, students frozen in 90s clothes, Marco's camcorder still in hand. The glow pulsed, then collapsed inward. Drones lost signal instantly. In September 2020, the FBI brought science and surveillance to a place that obeyed neither. Film reels spoke in warnings. Mirrors returned the wrong faces. Heat cameras tracked figures that weren't there. And the tower glowed once more, revealing guests who should never have remained. The hotel's silence was broken. But what it said was not meant for the living. Inside a temporary command tent near the hotel, agents gathered around monitors showing corrupted thermal footage. Agent Monroe said, "Every test fails at 12:17. That's not coincidence, that's coordination." Agent Park replied, "Or manipulation. Whatever's here doesn't want to be caught." Technician added, "Sir, the real frames, we enhanced further. It shows words, over and over, checked out." The agents exchanged uneasy looks. Reporters demanded answers. Flashbulbs flared. Reporter asked, "Is the FBI confirming paranormal activity?" Agent Monroe answered carefully, "We are confirming unexplained anomalies. The investigation remains active." From the crowd, Mrs. Park shouted, holding Jamie's photo. Mrs. Park cried, "She's still there. I know she's still there." Her voice cracked, silencing the room. That night, former Ranger Eliza returned to the ridge, lantern in hand. She found Agent Monroe alone by the tower fence. Eliza said quietly, "You can't force the hotel to give them back. You can only listen." Agent Monroe asked, "Listen to what?" Eliza tilted her head. In the silence, faint laughter drifted, young voices echoing from the ballroom. Eliza whispered, "To them." At 12:17, the hotel erupted. The brass elevator clanged open and shut with no one inside. Wardrobes knocked in unison across 3 floors. The tower blazed with pale light. Silhouettes of 6 students pressed to the glass. Agent Park shouted, "Record everything. Don't blink." The light pulsed brighter. For a heartbeat, Marco's camcorder lifted in silhouette as if filming back at them. Then the glow collapsed, leaving the tower dark and dead again. Days later, the FBI filed its summary. Agent Monroe read aloud in a sterile office. Recovered evidence, film reels, journal fragments, anomalous surveillance data. Conclusion: insufficient proof of human crime. Case status: unresolved. She closed the file, eyes heavy. Agent Park said quietly, "We both know that's not the truth." Agent Monroe replied, "The truth doesn't fit in a report." In 2020, the FBI reopened the file of the Summit Crest Six. They found footage, journals, voices, light, but no bodies, no answers. Officially, the case remains unsolved. Unofficially, the hotel remains. Guests check in. Some leave. Some are remembered. And every night at 12:17, the elevator still climbs to a floor that does not exist.